A geyser of molten iron pours over enemy armor, the pungent stench of searing flesh clogging the air. Beneath the fortress walls, a single explosion sends limbs spiraling into the void, while screams of agony are swallowed whole by the thunderous roar. In the 11th century, while the rest of the world still hacked at one another, with crude blades and spears, one empire stood, alone, radiating an overwhelming firepower that seemed to have arrived from the distant future. That empire was the Song Dynasty. You likely remember the Song as a weak, scholarly state, a fragile nation that bought peace with gold. But that is a historical delusion you've been fed. By the time this video ends, you will have witnessed the true face of the Song Dynasty, the most brutal, sophisticated, medieval killing machine in human history. What was the reality of the blood-soaked technology hidden behind this radiant civilization? And why were they driven to create such terrifying instruments of death? Imagine you are a nomadic warrior charging the walls of a Song fortress. You surge forward with tens of thousands of your kin, shouting a war cry that shakes the earth. Suddenly, strange clay jars rain down from the battlements. The moment they strike the ground, a gargantuan flame erupts like the jaws of hell, swallowing everything in its path. This fire cannot be extinguished with water. It clings to your skin, burrowing deep to char the very bone. This is the fierce fire oil, the Song's secret chemical weapon. As the scalding oil seeps through the gaps in your armor, melting your skin into a liquid sludge, would you still think of a warrior's honor? Or would you roll on the ground, wailing for the mercy of a quick death? The Song even mounted these flamethrowers on warships, turning entire rivers into flowing infernos, a subaquatic hell of thousands burning alive in the water that was the first horror the Song bestowed upon its enemies. The brutality did not stop there. The Song was the first empire in history to perfect gunpowder for the sole purpose of slaughter. Their thunder crash bombs were literally thunderbolts that shook the heavens. They packed iron casings with jagged shrapnel and black powder, launching them into the heart of enemy formations. The resulting blast tore faces to shreds and punched holes through torsos. Records state that the sites of these explosions were littered with unidentifiable scraps of flesh, and survivors were often left deaf or driven into permanent madness by the sheer sonic force. If the head of the comrade you were just laughing with vanished in a flash, and his warm blood sprayed into your mouth, would you have the courage to take the next step forward? But what made the Song truly terrifying was not just the power of their weapons, but the chillingly systematic way they produced them. In the capital of Kaifeng, there existed a colossal weapons factory called the Zhuo Bi Yao. Tens of thousands of technicians were imprisoned there in labor camp conditions, churning out tools of death day and night. Going blind or losing fingers in gunpowder accidents was a daily occurrence. The Song was a cold-blooded empire that viewed the lives of its own citizens as mere fuel for its fire. Among their arsenal was the crouching rhino crossbow, a mechanical nightmare that could pierce through a horse and its rider from hundreds of meters away. They coated the arrowheads in excrement or toxic bile. Even if you were lucky enough to survive the hit, you would die a slow, agonizing death from sepsis as your flesh turned black and burst with pus. That lingering rot was a punishment, 10,000 times worse than a clean death by a blade. Now, let me tell you a secret that will shatter your perception of history. You thought the Song was a peaceful Confucian state. Think again. To break the will of their enemies, they stooped to psychological warfare that defied all human decency. During long sieges, when food ran out, some records suggest the Song military killed captives and dried their flesh to be used as combat rations. Soldiers standing atop the walls, chewing on human jerky while staring down the enemy. In their eyes, human reason had vanished, replaced by the predatory frenzy of a beast. Could you maintain your dignity for even a single second in a place where you survived by consuming your enemy or your own fallen kin? Song technology reached its peak on the high seas. Their tower ships were floating fortresses, They featured massive paddle wheels on their sides to churn through the waves, while dozens of catapults on deck rained thunder crash bombs incessantly. When an enemy ship drew close, they used massive iron grapples to lock it in place, before dousing the entire vessel in fierce fire oil, turning it into a giant brazier. Soldiers jumping from the burning ships were dragged down by their heavy armor, while those who stayed afloat were trapped in the oil slicks burning on the water's surface. Boiled alive in the sea, the ocean became a cacophony of screams and the stench of rendered human fat. With this technology, the song sank the fleets of the invincible nomads, like they were made of paper. But doesn't it strike you as strange? Why did an empire with such overwhelming technology eventually fall? Here lies history's most tragic twist. All the killing machines the song painstakingly perfected were eventually seized by the very monster that would destroy them, the Mongols. The Mongol hordes kidnapped song engineers to refine their gunpowder and cannons, and in the end, the song met its demise at the hands of the very weapons it had birthed. When the last Song Emperor, a mere child, jumped into the sea, it is said the bodies of tens of thousands of loyalists covered the water so thickly that the waves themselves were invisible. It was the moment a brilliant civilization sank into blood and flame. So, I ask you a provocative question. Was the song really a weak nation? Or was it a dangerous empire that summoned the horrors of the future too soon? Did the gunpowder they created advance humanity, or was it a curse that merely maximized the efficiency of slaughter? If you were a song engineer, would you feel pride watching your creations take tens of thousands of lives? Or would the guilt keep you from ever sleeping again? The song we looked at today is not the soft nation of poets you were told about. It was a sight of desperate survival, filled with boiling oil, exploding iron, and the grit of those who chewed on human flesh to hold the line. History is written by the victors, but the spark of gunpowder the song ignited still burns on battlefields across the world today. The gates of hell they opened might not have closed yet. What do you think after seeing this brutal, hidden side of the Song dynasty? If you were a warrior of the Khitan or Jurchen tribes, could you still charge forward knowing the flames of the fierce fire oil were waiting for you? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement is the fuel that keeps this channel burning. If you don't subscribe and like, the arrows of the crouching rhino crossbow might find your back next time. I'm joking, but the truth of history is always more cruel than a joke. Next time, we will uncover the even more horrific massacres that occurred when the Mongols took this gunpowder technology to burn the rest of the world. I hope the heat of the fierce fire oil doesn't haunt your dreams tonight. Thank you for watching.